Okay, hey, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today I have a really cool prototype preview from the brand RZE. This is a newer micro brand upstart where the founder was essentially a designer for another popular micro and has since set out to create his own vision from the ground up. Now, in terms of the type of watch, this is dive watch, some key common characteristics and design language. You're looking for a diver. Of course, you're going to want water resistance, typically some type of screw down crown. You want something that's tough, legible with a dive time bezel, and a diver's extension is always nice if on bracelets. This is a brand new prototype, so pardon me if I pronounce it incorrectly by the name, because this is my first time hearing the name is me having to pronounce it, which is, I believe it'll be pronounced the Aspirare. And it's an upcoming professional grade diver with a few little changes here and there in terms of between this prototype that I'll be showcasing and of course the eventual production model. One of the changes will be that the bracelet will be on quick release spring bars, as well as some further refinements within the action of that toolless micro adjusting buckle. This will hopefully be released around May 17th of this year, 2023, and I'm really looking forward to sharing with you. Now, again, I'm recording this quite a ways out, and because of that, kind of expedited timeline where I have to, get hands-on and kind of share it with you guys rather quick before sending it over to the next publication or reviewer. Again, there may be some changes that you see posted on their site or from other reviewers that, might have gotten more information at the time of recording. So don't mind any of that, but I'll definitely still share with you guys what I think is a very cool step in terms of having a truly dedicated, deep diver here. So with that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, guys, now while it's not going to be ultra deep diving by any means, it is one of those things where, typically a lot of the divers that they've done so far have more so been kind of 200-meter, more everyday watches. Now this one is going to be more of that kind of professional grade dive watch. And one of the things you guys probably noticed was the fact that there was another bezel here. And in terms of if this is included, I honestly do not know if it will be included, but I do know that in terms of the bezel, it is swappable, so you can unscrew and swap it out. And it is actually kind of cool to see this up close, because I believe it shows you that, there's multiple construction here. Like, I believe this is steel underneath the actual titanium, which would explain why the bezel action is so good, because there's so many times on titanium watches where it's only titanium is more of like a secondary thing. Like, they made a popular, especially in the world of micro brands, they make a nice steel watch, then they upgrade it with titanium, and then the bezel action kind of suffers. So man, this thing, that tactile engagement is fantastic. And you can see just the level of tolerance on just the captive screws there. I think is very, very nice. Now, getting into some more of these details, this has a 44 millimeter diameter. So this is definitely a full size diver, a larger size diver, but I wouldn't say an oversized diver. And it's not just because of the scale and proportions. A lot of it also has to do with, the shape, and then also the use of materials that are here. By having this, of course, in grade 2 titanium in this great two-tone finish, you're getting matte blasted as well as satin brushed, and then of course all with that signature hardness coating known as Ultra Hex that gives it up to 1200 Vickers of hardness, which is 8 times harder than 316L stainless steel. The crystal, as you can see, is very nicely done, and I should say, should I say as you can see, because you can't even see it, because it does have their super AR coating, which is just tells you that essentially they applied it many times. So there's quite a few layers of anti-reflective coating, and of course, if I put the reflection directly on the studio light, it's gonna wash out. But you can see here just by how nicely this texture on here, which is a little bit of a granular texture, is rendering in the lighting directly here. that this thing is very, very legible and very, very clear. So that is definitely quite nice. I already mentioned, of course, the 120 click bezel, unidirectional rotating, so it only goes one way. Feels good fast. Ooh. Feels good slow. Very nice balance between smooth and clicky. That's kind of, it's a tightrope walk. You really want to balance that out. You don't want it to be so smooth that it feels sloppy, and you don't want it to be so clicky that it feels harsh. So very nicely done in terms of dialing in that bezel action. And then, of course, you can swap it out if you prefer a different look here. Again, I'm in a bit of a hurry of trying to get this all put together and shot, and then I don't think I'll even be able to edit it for a while, let alone post it. So we'll just kind of stick to this core configuration. The crown is nicely signed and screwed down there at 4 o'clock, as you can see. The case back is screw in, and of course uses Viton gaskets, all solid titanium there, covering the movement inside, which is a Miyota 9015, which a lot of people will enjoy in terms of its thinness as well as its higher hertz beat rate, ticking at 8 times per second or 4 hertz or 800 vibrations per hour. So nice and smooth from that perspective. And since this is a larger watch, we're really well dampened. It's not like you're going to feel any rotor whir, which you might feel if it was this movement in a dressier watch. Now, the dial itself is a beautiful matte white dial. You can see these applied indices and painted hands. And then, of course, the surrounds on those indices match the high contrast paint on the hands. The date window is at 6 o'clock with a contrasting date disc. So you're going to see the reverse date there in terms of it being a black background with white numerals on top. And then you get a mixture of Swiss Superluminova C3 and BGW9, which we'll see closer when we get to those lume shots and low light transition. This has 300 meters or 1,000 feet of water resistance for 30 atmospheres. And getting to now the bracelet, it has a 22 millimeter lug width. These are drilled lugs. Again, one of the changes will be that they are going to have quick release spring bars, so don't mind that there. And then, of course, you do have this really nice bracelet, which is original style. They're calling it, the Aspirare link. And it does taper from 22 down to about 19.8 to about a 22 millimeter pushed button clasp here, which also is dual finished, which you can really see. You're getting, of course, the matte blast and then the satin brush. Really nicely milled triggers here for the buttons, and it works very, very well. And then underneath, you're getting that toolless micro adjust with 4 positions. So, and again, this is going to be improved and, refined. It is a slightly different mechanism than the one that I reviewed recently on one of their other dive watches. So I don't know if they're swapping over to, that other mechanism, but it still performs, pretty similarly. It's just a slightly different take on it in terms of its execution. So we'll see when the actual production models are released, but it definitely works like a charm. And then the nice thing is, since these are already shorter links, that you can already kind of dial things in really well. Another thing you might notice is you have screw-in links. So everything is solid, screw-in, just like you would expect from a micro brand that really pays attention to, of course, what people like with that hardness coating, with this very original design, right? But it still has some classic elements that flow really well. So I like that. So with all that said, let's actually get this piece on the wrist and see how it wears. Okay, guys, as you can see on my 7.5 inch wrist, it wears really well. Maybe if I get my wrist too close to the camera there, you're going to get a lot of lens distortion. It's going to feel a lot bigger than it actually is. But if you just take a look at my hand down here, you can see it actually, for the size, it contours really well, lays really well. It has some great light play, especially considering that it's mostly matted, right? You are going to get some satin there that's going to play with the light in different ways. But it's not like you have any high polished surfaces. So what I'll do is, so you guys can get some more details here without getting that distortion, is just tighten the shot up so you guys can get some nice details here, of course, while seeing it still nicely centered on the wrist. And you can see it lays really, really flat there. This bezel kind of reminds me of my U50. It just has that very clean, modern aesthetic, which I like. And again, this is a very original. Look at the way that the links play with the light. You're getting, of course, matte blasted. And then here you can see where the light's playing and dancing a little bit. That's actually a satin brush. So you're getting a lot of alternating finishings to help play with the light. And you can see there is a just touch of taper there, which does help with range of motion. But, you know, this is just kind of a good looking piece. It's meant to be quite large and quite modern. And, you know, I'm not trying to fight with that. Not every watch needs to be a vintage inspired big crown. So it's nice to see something that's modern, that is quite, you know, full sized. And again, doesn't really feel too hefty thanks to the use of titanium. If this was in steel, my goodness, I can only imagine how much heavier it would feel, because it honestly has a really nice heft to it, a quality feeling of heft at even the 44mm width. So, you know, it's going to visually look a little bit smaller. It's going to physically wear a little bit smaller. So don't be too afraid of this piece, because of course it is, again, a full-size diver. It's not meant to be a mid-size by any means, but I wouldn't call it oversized. I just think that it wears too well. And then also the wider lugs do kind of help with proportioning this out and making it feel, you know, purposefully sized. So with that said, let's get it off the wrist, set up for some loom shots, the light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. As you can see, really nice blend there between that green C3 and the blue BGW9, where, you know, during daylight, it all definitely rendered as white, which was nice, visually, optically quite white. And then here you're seeing that it actually does have those blue and greenish hues. Now, even with that white dial, with the amount of loom that's coming here, it's even lighting the dial a bit, which is nice. But one thing I always like to work in, of course, is some low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or maybe hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it's nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting, to maybe even include some harsh lighting that could typically, you know, reveal any types of production defects. But here you're just going to see how these matte surfaces really just hold the light. And then there's a little bit of play with some of those satin brush surfaces. So I do like that. Definitely a nice little change of pace. It's complex, but not for no reason, right? Like it just shows you that they're going the extra mile and doing something fun and, you know, giving it its signature look and appearance. And it's a nice appearance, even in, of course, dark, you know, viewing angles. It's very, very nice, of course, well lit, you know, on the same side of the coin. So this is a very cool, fun looking piece. And, you know, obviously that's pretty subjective. I think it looks nice. But if you're shopping for something vintage-esque, you know, then this might just not speak to you at all. So closing thoughts, guys, on the wrist, this wears surprisingly well for a full-sized piece. It avoids feeling oversized thanks to thoughtful ergonomics as well as lighter weight materials. It definitely still feels solid and substantial, but I'd say more like a 42mm steel watch than it feels, you know, like when you think about titanium watches, super lightweight. That wasn't necessarily the goal with this one. It's, you know, all RZE makes is titanium watches, and they always are looking to make something very robust, right? So as a tool watch, you know, as a functional timekeeper, that's really where they, you know, the nucleus of every design kind of starts there with functionality. So in terms of model variants, definitely check the site links in the description for, you know, any types of options or availability. Of course, I don't really know up front right now at the time of recording, but the nice thing is by the time I do post this, they should have some stuff posted for you guys to also check out and compare. So for me, guys, let's get into comparable models. A little tough to consider comparable models without a price point, because I don't know that yet. So sorry if some of you were waiting for me to discuss the price. So they'll just jump right into the bottom line. This is RZE's most advanced diver yet. And, you know, just want to send a big thank you to Travis for letting me get this early preview so I could share it with you all. So definitely let me know what you all think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please do it like. And if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.